Okay, so it is time for another Lessons to Self. I haven't done one of these in a while because I really like doing them walking, but I can't do them walking because we just got hit by a snowstorm and I don't want to take Jake out in it, to be honest with you. So I'm just going to do them sitting. I do find a lot of value in these because it gives me a chance to kind of talk through things that I've been thinking about, like frameworks that I've been trying to figure out. And a lot of times, if I just talk through a problem, even if it's just to myself, and I feel like someone's listening, then I'll come to a solution a lot faster. And whatever solution I come to actually turns out to be a little bit better than if I just sit there and leave it in my head. Because I tend to just repeat things in my head a lot often. I'll go in circles and then forget that I even thought about it, and then we'll just come back and just be a circle again. So this is a way for me to kind of dictate what I've thought about without repeating it over and over again. Um, and today, I really have put a lot of time in thinking about things, frameworks really, um, on how to make decisions and make sure that I keep things that matter top priority. And I kind of wanted to share the process that I went through because I found it to be very valuable and something that's helped me a lot throughout the years is how I decide what matters and what doesn't matter, and how to decide where my time goes and where my time shouldn't go. And this was a whole journey, and I kind of just want to go through the whole journey and the thought processes and the visualizations I had that helped me get through that journey. So, first and foremost, the thing that made the biggest difference to me was the fact that I realized that the "I don't have enough time" fallacy is just a lie. Like at the end of the day, I have time to do everything that matters to me. If I have time to eat, obviously eating matters, and I don't even like eating that much, then I have time to do anything that actually matters in my life. And that's just the truth. Like I've used the excuse so many times in my life. I just don't have time for that. I don't have time for that because X, Y, Z, blah 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 blah. It's excuse after excuse after excuse. And the truth is, they are just excuses. I always have time for things that matter. If someone said to me, no matter how busy my life is, I'm going to give you this Ferrari, but you have to drive it for an hour a day, I'm going to find an hour in my day to drive that Ferrari. I don't care how busy I am. It's always just a priority issue. And once I realized that, I kind of wanted to decide how to decide what my priorities are. And I do realize that having priorities, like having things that matter, there is a limit to that. And I kind of I'm good with visualizations. That's kind of how I work best. And I wanted a way to keep the fact that like I can't have too many priorities. Not everything can't matter. Like if everything matters, then nothing matters. That I had to like have a finite limit. So the way I do it and the way I've done it is I basically imagine a bucket. Now the bucket's not very big, but the bucket's always the same size. That's super important. It's a physical bucket. It only can hold so much. Like that bucket has a very rare, very real max capacity. And on the front of the bucket, it just says what matters. And once I have that visualization, my goal is to only allow what truly matters into that bucket. And that bucket can be full, and that's fine. And that's typically when I find myself the happiest, whenever the bucket's full, it's because I am doing nothing but what matters to me, nothing but what I really care about. And that's the importance of having this bucket and realizing that everything outside of this bucket is just white noise. Like it can't be allowed to even take a fraction of my attention. So I realize that I can do anything that matters and that what matters has a limit, and I keep that bucket in the forefront of my brain. The next step I had to do was realize, and this is something that I'm still working on. Like I'm working on this really hard. I want it to be something where it doesn't even take much thought, and that's why I'm constantly working on frameworks and sayings to remind myself of these things. Um, the next step is to realize what can be put in the bucket and the frameworks used to decide that. So I have two right now that has worked really, really well for me and has worked well for me for a long time. They're kind of like a step by step sequence. So the first step is if it doesn't matter for if it doesn't matter in 5 years, it doesn't matter for 5 minutes. But if it matters in 5 years, it needs to be fixed in 5 minutes. So that's the first thing that every decision or any conflict or any issue that's placed in front of me goes through. The next one is the way I view ROI. So ROI means return on investment. So basically, anytime I invest anything, a resource, time, money, energy, whatever that resource may be, what ROI am I looking for? And this is the exact thought process that I go through whenever presented with anything and trying to protect that bucket of what matters. First, if it doesn't matter in 5 years, it doesn't matter for. If it doesn't matter in 5 years, it shouldn't matter for 5 minutes. But if it matters for 5 minutes, it needs to be fixed. If it doesn't matter in 5 years, it doesn't matter for 5 minutes. But if it does matter in 5 years, it needs to be fixed in 5 minutes. I use that as my like barrier right off the bat. And I can give a couple scenarios of this. If someone on the internet tells me that they don't like the way I look, they think I'm stupid and ugly, I'm not going to see this person again. So that is completely white noise. It does not matter. It doesn't even make it through the first part of the filter. Instantly, I know this doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. I'm not giving it any of my attention or anywhere near my bucket. It's way off in China. Now, if my wife says I'm ugly, stupid, and doesn't like the way I think or talk, that's going to matter in 5 years. That needs to be fixed right away. That is top priority. That is something that, like, red alert, fire the sirens. It's time to figure out what's going on. We need to take care of this. So that's kind of the first step, is deciding that. And I've used this framework on many different things. When it comes to health, for example, like, there's so many things for health that we take for granted. And every time I talk to someone, because I'm in the fitness industry, who's 40s plus, they always talk about how much they wish they would have started this sooner. So that tells me in 5 years, because if I can use other people's journeys as a good indicator of mine, which we almost always can, in 5 years, this is going to matter to me a lot, because what I do now is going to dictate that. Then my health needs to matter and be taken care of now. So that's a perfect example of, like, if it matters in 5 years, it needs to be taken care of in 5 minutes. So consciously taking care of my health now will actually help me in 5 years when I actually care about it even more. Now, once I've decided, like, okay, so yes, this is something that matters and this is something that needs to be taken care of, the next step is to decide the ROI of that. So I never want to go into a situation or go into something and not know what I'm trying to get out of it. And that's a common, and this might not be a misperception. This might just be like, I perceive ROI as this way and this is how I use it. So a lot of people think of ROI as only money. That's all they think about. They think money whenever they hear ROI. And I don't really like the investment, or the return on investment can be money. Like, that's fine. And sometimes I'm going into it with the goal of getting money back, but not always. Like, sometimes I'm going into this and my only goal is to have a good time. And if I go into it, I invest money or resource or time into it, and my goal is to have a good time, I had a positive ROI at the end of the day, because I went into it knowing that's what I was going into it for. And that's kind of where I have a disconnect sometimes, where if I go into it with the goal of, making money or doing something outside of just having a good time, and the result is not making money, even though I had a good time, I might not have a positive outcome of it because I didn't go into it for that reason. So having a very clear idea of what it is I'm going into this for and what I want out of it before I even start it helps dictate how I'm going to handle that situation. So I'm going to use the same examples of this that I've already used. For example, wife says, you're ugly and I don't like the way you think. So this is a problem. It's going to affect you in 5 years, obviously. And I'm not a relationship coach. I'm just using this as an example. Obviously, this needs to be taken care of. So first things first, I need to decide, okay, I'm going to go into this. I'm going to invest time as my resource and figure out what's going on. Then what do I want out of it? I want understanding and I want a clear path of moving forward. So when I go into that conversation, I want to understand where she's coming from. I want to understand why she feels this way, what's changed, what's going on, what's the root of the problem, and then what are we going to do moving forward. So I know that going into it. And that's the two frameworks I use to try to decide, like, how to fix this problem that I know matters. And, like, I know my resource, I know the outcome I want. And fitness is going to be the same thing. I know it's going to matter, so I'm going to invest time in fitness, all the resources. Like, I invest in coaches, I invest in buying the right stuff to work out with. I invest my time in it because I have to go work out. And I know the outcome is I want to have a certain level of health and fitness and maintain it. So, again, I know the ROI I'm looking for out of that. And that's been the same criteria I use in almost everything. And I found the more I practice this, the more I work on always thinking, if it doesn't matter in 5 years, it doesn't matter for 5 minutes, but if it matters in 5 years, it needs to be fixed in 5 minutes. And always thinking about what the ROI is, like what I am investing and what I'm expecting in return. And in that sequence has always resulted in a better outcome for me. Like I'm always happier, I always feel more fulfilled, I always feel like the things that I tried to accomplish were actually accomplished. And I can actually vouch the exact opposite of that is true as well. If I go into the day and I just squander through the day, no idea what I'm doing, no direction, I just am mindlessly running through the day, I feel so awful at the end of the day. I feel like I wasted that entire day. My productivity anxiety is sky high. And that's a whole nother story for a different thing. And it just doesn't feel like I was following the path I wanted to follow. I feel like I actually took steps away from the path that I want to follow because it was never defined. If you don't know where you're going, there's no way to set that compass in the direction you want to go. And I just, I feel like those two frameworks have really just done so much for me. So I want to make sure I shared them and something that maybe might help you in the long run as well. If you have any kind of frameworks that has worked well for you or things that you use to decide or make decisions for your life or for major things, go ahead and share them below. And if you find this useful, if you found this information useful, let me know. Like if you can use this as a practical thing in your life, I would love to hear about it. Go ahead and comment and let me know that. And as always, I hope that you're doing great and life is great. And future me, when I go back and watch this, hopefully you're smarter than you are now.